It's all good. All right, we are live. Connect Gang, what's going on? This is your boy Antonio Williams, the Sports Connect, and I got my sister Judy right here. And so nice we had to do it twice, as I said in my post. I had her on a while ago, and she was so enlightening, talking about her journey as a player, as an athlete, her journey in the sneaker culture, as an incredible sneaker artist as well, and all the work that she's done. And of course, we've had a lot of sports happening since then with the wubble, the bubble, the NFL is back. So we'll be talking about all those things. We'll also probably be getting into some, since we're around Halloween time, we'll probably talk about some horror movies as well. So this is a wide-ranging show. So how are you, Judy? I appreciate you joining me again, family.
Oh man, thanks for having me again. I'm doing all right. Just living day by day. A lot of stuff going on out here. You just try to stay positive and keep your head.
No question, no doubt, right? It's to your point is, as the great Nipsey Hussle said, the marathon continues, and you have to
Exactly.
really approach it as that, and make sure that we are disciplined and not emotional. I was talking about that yesterday with somebody. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So we'll talk about one. I want to talk about the wubble, and for people that see Connect Gang, I am wearing my Candace Parker Unbothered t-shirt, and this is in reference to her being Defensive Player of the Year and not making the first team or the second team all defensive team in the WNBA. And Defensive Player of the Year is voted on by the media. The all defensive team members are voted on by head coaches in the W. And she didn't make first and second team. And I certainly want to get your thoughts on that. And it's sort of her, for as great as she as a player, she's had a very interesting and winding road. And starting back, we started to see a little bit of this with the 2016 Olympic team, and the fact that she wasn't on the team when she was, I think she finished second in the league in MVP balloting, and clearly one of the top 10 or 12 players in the world, and wasn't on that team. So what was your thought process when you saw her being named Defensive Player of the Year and then not making first team all defensive in the WNBA, or second team for that matter?
Well, I mean, obviously it's trash. Like, I'm not gonna mince words. Like, it's obvious. This is the problem. This is the problem when you have humans voting for anything, right? There's always going to be some level of bias, right?
Yep.
So it's frustrating because people can't just be objective. You know what I mean? Take the information that you have in front of you, leave all the personalities out of it. Numbers are numbers, and numbers don't lie, right?
Right.
So, I mean, if you just do your job, right? Your job is not to vote who has the personality you like the most.
Right.
Simple as that. It's simple as that. Right. And I can relate to it, right? I played Division II basketball, right? But my senior year, I averaged 32 points a game, and I watched another player that averaged 16 points a game win Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So it's literally, it's all about how they feel about you as a person. Right.
No question.
So
no question.
At the end of the day, like she said, she's unbothered because she knows, we know, anybody who's important knows. And those same coaches have to play her next year. So, you know what I mean? She'll do what she has to do, right? She'll make it known. So at the end of the day, she's winning, right? They feel like they took something away from her. That's their little notch in their belt, but they still have to deal with her. So
no question.
At the end of the day, they're gonna pay for it. So
no question. And she was a problem this year, not only offensively, but again, defensively as well. She was like third in the league in defensive win shares, like third in the league in defensive efficiency. So, it's funny that you say that. That's another reason why I like having these conversations too, because I feel like we can nerd out on so many different levels. And as a player myself, I lived that. I was, and some of my high school teammates were on here. I was literally in one of the toughest leagues in Southern California. I was actually all county in LA. And then I was actually, the same year that I was first team all county in LA, I was also honorable mention all league. I didn't make the first team, second team, or third team. So I know exactly what that feels like. And it's just crazy because, to your point, I look at the W, and of course I am and a huge fan of the W. But I was saying this to somebody before, because I've had people, and I knew that this was going to happen. I had people, Judy, reaching out to me that are basketball fans, but they're not W fans. And the first thing they said to me was, man, how can your defensive player of the year not make first team or second team all defensive? And it really, for a sport that, again, there are a lot of people, and, they feel how they feel. There are a lot of people that call themselves basketball fans that are not W fans. That's not a good look in terms of trying to gain some of those new fans, right? It hurts. At least I feel like it hurts the credibility.
It hurts the
of
brand.
the league.
It hurts the brand for sure.
Yeah, give me your perspective on that.
I'm gonna be a little bit spicy, but it's 100% true, right? Certain players get knocked for certain things that other players don't get knocked for, right?
Right.
So some players have to be perfect. They have to please everybody. They have to be like a bubbly, bright personality for people to feel comfortable with who they are as a person. Then you have other players who get teed up, yelling refs' faces, and they're the GOAT, right? They're the GOAT. You love their fire, right?
Yep.
I'm not going to say any names, right? I'm a fan of these players because I'm a fiery player. But one player gets knocked for being fiery, and the other player is passionate, right?
No question.
And those are the same dog whistles that Black women deal with every day.
Speak. That is spot on. That is completely spot on. And to your point, that being quote unquote fiery for some people is looked at as leadership.
Exactly.
Right. And other people, it's you're being divisive, and so you are spot on. So please, when you say you're being spicy, I one of the things that I say is hashtag RTO, real talk only. So it's real talk only here, right?
Exactly.
So it was when I look at that immediately, the first thing I started thinking is just, here we go, 2016 all over again. And it's amazing when you see, and we'll jump around a little bit here because I want to follow the flow of the conversation. It's amazing when you see, even the advent of social media, how it's giving more credence to trolling and people being a contrarian just for the sake of being a contrarian.
Oh my God, that's my pet peeve. That's my pet peeve.
Right. And you see that, and it's so relevant because you see the same thing with LeBron. And I want to talk about the wobble some more, but since we're talking about Candace and we're talking about this, I think it's the same thing applies for LeBron. So we're going to go back to the wobble, but again, I'm just following the flow of the conversation. So it's the same thing with him. And so I would love to hear your perspective on how the media, how he has somehow become so I would say polarizing as a player and as a figure. So I'd love to hear your insight on that as well.
Okay. Well, first of all, I feel like you always have to preface this, because if you don't, then you're a hater and you're blah, blah, blah. Right?
Yes.
I grew up worshiping Jordan. Every day before my games, I watched his four set DVD. This was my guy. I wore the leg band, had the armband, wore the Jordans. Listen, I am a Jordan stan. Okay.
I told you we are united.
I grew up on Jordan, so I'm going to start off with that, because if you don't, then the reactionaries will call you a hater immediately. All right. I watched him play. Right. I cried when he retired. I watched that second three-peat. I was there for all of it. The Wizards. I still have a Wizards jersey. Okay. So it starts from there, right? I understand that people are so passionate about Jordan because he meant so much to the culture, right? He meant so much to us, not just as a basketball player, but as an icon, as seeing what you could be as a young Black kid, right?
For sure.
So I understand the loyalty to him, right? But he was chasing himself, right?
Yes.
And LeBron is chasing nostalgia, right?
Yes.
So that's a big part of it.
I'm chasing the ghosts. Yeah.
Exactly. So the bigger part is LeBron has been a one-man economy his whole life, right? So he gets on, he gets drafted, he brings his boys with him, he puts them all in positions to win, right? He brings Boobie Gibson, Larry Hughes, puts them all in a position to win, right?
Absolutely.
Z in a position to win. The media he puts in a position to win. You know why? Because Skip Bayless was just a dude that was a regular media guy. He learned early that there's a big market for people who love Jordan, love Kobe, and see this kid coming, and they don't like it. So he learned early that if I just say the most asinine things about this kid, I'll get a fan base.
Yes.
He literally is a one-man
Absolutely.
economy. These guys, Whitlock, Skip, Rob Parker, like guys like that, they don't exist if LeBron doesn't exist. So you want to talk about greatest of all time, right?
Right.
He's not even, he's even helping out his haters.
And to your point, Judy, and you are spot on. I'm so glad you say that. And to your point, when you look at it, he's even created jobs and situations for people that aren't necessarily haters. And I'm not saying that this guy doesn't do good work, because he does. But where would Brian Windhorst be if it weren't for LeBron James?
Absolutely.
Right? In terms of
McMenamin too. I mean, those guys literally. I mean, Windhorst went from Cleveland to Miami. You want to talk about a promotion?
There we go.
He got a promotion just because he knew LeBron when he was 14, 15, 16 years old.
Right. We went to the same high school. Absolutely.
He's a one-man economy.
Absolutely. There's no question about that. And it's funny that you say that, because you and I are in the same boat. I wore 23 as a player. I watched Come Fly With Me before every one of my games, right? And so this guy was such an influence on me as a player. And in fact, the times in my career where I didn't wear 23, because you know this, Judy, when we were coming through, when you wore 23, that was almost like a bullseye. You had to be able to play if you wore it.
Yeah.
Right? Because people were coming at you. So it changed my whole mentality when I didn't wear it. So I had to go back to it. And so you are spot on with what you're saying. And it's just amazing to me to watch the narrative about LeBron change. And we'll get into that in the playoffs. But I just wanted to talk about that because Candace and LeBron, in that regard, they mirror each other.
There's a lot of similarities. Yeah.
No question. That's why I went there. So let's go back to the bubble. I mean, the wobble. So were you surprised at the outcome? Were you surprised that maybe not surprised that Seattle won it, but were you surprised that Vegas was the team that they faced in the finals? And what were some of the other things that you noticed in the bubble of note, whether it's players, teams, etc.? Anything you wanted, we'll vibe off of that.
I wasn't surprised they won. They were the most healthy team at the end of the year.
Yeah.
The big part of the bubble was health and who you had coming with you to the wobble. You know, I feel like early on, the Mystics looked good. They looked good, and then they just really kind of had a weird dip. They were dominant in the beginning, but they're a deep team.
Very much so.
A deep team. So I mean, I think if they had Elena, I think they might have been right there.
And Tina Charles too. Jeez. Like,
exactly. And Tina Charles, like that's a deep team. So that's definitely a team you're going to look out for. But at the end of the day, I think it came down to availability and health. You know, when they lost their sixth man of the year, I mean, that's tough to overcome. And I mean, like,
that's very tough.
Asia played, she balled out, you know, but she's still young. Like, I mean, she's ahead of her time as far as like growth as a player, but she's still fairly young as a player. Yeah. And you're playing against vets, a team of deep vets.
Right.
So I mean, I'm not surprised that they ended up winning. My one observation though is that this was the deepest rookie class of all time. This rookie class, they came in and they were all ready to play. And it sucks that there were so many injuries because this rookie of the year vote would have been so close. It would have been so tight. And I mean, I think it went to the right person.
Right.
But I would have loved to see, you know, Sabrina be healthy, Kennedy be healthy.
Yeah.
You know, we were treated to some crazy guard play from the rookies.
To say the least, you know, and to your point, being a point guard myself, like I love watching it, and I love guards that have the ability. And it was one of the things I was saying about Kennedy and about Sabrina as well. when you win and you win big at the professional level, your guards have to be able to, of course, be facilitators, especially if they are fabricators of offense. They got to be facilitators, but they also have to be able to function as scorers as well.
Absolutely.
And we saw that one of the things, again, going back to the NBA, but I'm going to go back to the bubble. Like, that was one of the things that I would say a lot about Rondo with the Lakers. It's like, yes, we know he's an incredible passer, but if he's not functioning as a scorer, or at least as working as a threat as a scorer, all of that facilitating doesn't mean a whole lot, right?
Yeah, and so, I mean, if you play with a guy like LeBron, you don't even have to. You know, they can kind of switch off in with the facilitator role, so that definitely helps.
Right.
But yeah, I
right.
mean, if you have someone who can handle the ball, especially like getting to the hole, create offense for themselves. It's not just like off the set plays.
Yes.
In the WNBA, then you have a killer. Like,
no question.
I mean, Dangerfield came in and she was like,
man,
it was like she's always been here.
That's exactly what it looked like.
Man, I had a lot of fun watching her play. She was this season you could put up against a veteran point guard season. I mean, she was that good.
Yeah, no, she was really good. And then to your point, even in lesser doses, when I would watch the Sparks, like, and I say this a lot, when I watch the Sparks in lesser doses, and we're talking about rookies and guard play here, if Taya Cooper isn't exhibit A as to why we need more teams in the W, I don't know what is. Because, like, how do you know, a player like that gets drafted by Phoenix and gets cut before she even works out, right? And then the Sparks just benefit from it. And for a rookie playing on a veteran team with, you know, aspirations to go deep in the playoffs, she made an impact. So, you know, to your point as well, and she made that impact because she was a player that when she was coming through college, the question was, can she play the point? Because she was a scorer first, but she also showed that she can facilitate for others as well. So to your point, if you have a guard that can do both of those things, or multiple guards that can do those things, you can make some stuff happen. And like you said, it was amazing to watch it. It was great to see it. The other thing about Seattle as well, for me, and I guess this is a similarity to the Lakers winning it in the NBA, is they seem like these were extenuated circumstances, right? And with them being the most healthy, to your point, I guess that kind of goes into the fact that at least with their star players, they didn't have any opt-outs really. And in fact, the only time somebody left is when Whitcomb was having a baby, she went back to Australia.
Yeah.
You know, and so to your point, like, and the Lakers were the same way. It seemed like the most connected teams were the ones that were able to withstand being in the bubble. Speak to me a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, I think that a lot of it just goes to, you know, mentality. It's hard. I mean, it's hard to be away from your family in an isolated, you know, situation where you're only seeing like the hotel room, the cafeteria, you know, the court, and that's hard. I think it's funny to me though, because I feel like in the NBA, the younger teams thrived because they were in that situation, because there were no distractions, because they're just fresh out of college. This is what they do anyway, right? So with the NBA, it's like those young guys thrive, except for the Lakers. They're the only old team to really be able to overcome that. And I think that's because you got guys like LeBron, you got guys like Rondo. And then this kind of the same thing in the WNBA, except for the vets have so much more skill, you know, and over the younger ladies in the WNBA that they are able to overcome. But at the end of the day, I think it's a lot of it's just being able to mentally be there. You saw a couple of players on, you know, on both sides just drop out because it's hard. You see people coming forward saying like they struggle with mental health things, and you have to have a very specific drive and personality to be in that situation. It's completely out of your comfort zone.
Absolutely. No question about that. No question. And to your point, I'm glad you said that, because people make light of mental health, especially with athletes. And, you know, because it seems like, and we're seeing this this has manifested itself in college athletics now as well. And it seems like there's this thought process that, you know, especially with respect to COVID-19, there's this thought process that when we are on the the gridiron or we're on the hardwood, we're superhuman, and then we're subhuman off of it in some people's
Mm-hmm.
eyes. And
Mm-hmm.
and it manifests itself in that. It's like, hey, yeah, subject yourself to this pandemic that not only can it take your life now, we don't even know the ramifications if you contract it. We're just learning about what those long-term effects are. But that's okay. Go ahead and do that. But to your point, then off the floor, yeah, some of that stuff you're talking about, yeah, I don't know. So it's just amazing to me to watch that, and then to see, the mental health aspect that these athletes have to endure, and it's because they have these superhuman talents. It's almost like the mental aspect of it doesn't exist in them, or it shouldn't exist for them in some people's eyes. And I just think that's very interesting. And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, the thing is, as a whole, society just like lacks the basic human decency that you need. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
that's what it
yeah,
boils down to. You see,
yeah,
I always think it's funny when people they knock professional athletes for talking about politics. Yeah, you could be just like average Joe Schmo with a GED working at Sunoco, and it's fine for you to talk about politics. So why can't this
absolutely.
person? If you have
Yeah,
money, you're not allowed to talk about the struggle of people who don't have money. Like,
right,
yet every
right.
president is a millionaire. So it makes no sense.
Facts,
So really,
facts.
all it boils down to is you said thing I don't like, so don't say it.
Right,
At the end of the day, that's
right,
all it is.
right.
It's not. There's no rhyme. There's no reason. There's no smart, like thought out process behind it. It's just I don't like what you said, and I don't want you to say it. But I also still want you to dunk the basketball in the hole for me,
Yeah, yeah,
because when you see something on TV, you can't touch it, right? You can't interact with it. It's just there. And so then it almost becomes like it's not real. It's almost like you're
right.
watching like a TV drama, you know?
Yep.
These people are real life human beings that are doing their job. You're just able to watch it.
Right, right.
And people just it's something about the screen that makes people like lose all their human decency. And I don't know what
Yeah,
it is. Maybe it's like they know that no one can say anything to them because there's that barrier. But yeah, I just think it's the side effect of living in the culture we live in, the social
yeah,
media culture.
yeah. It's just amazing to see it, and so I am, when I watch the athletes and when I watch some of the things that living in this culture subjects them to, and then when people, to your point, what you said about money, when people actually justify it because they say, oh, they make enough money, so when you go to these games, I can say whatever I want to say to them, I can throw whatever I want to throw at them, I can touch them whenever I feel like it.
Yeah,
It's really that, and that's a function of the fact that when you look at the leagues, the cost of attending the game, the cost of purchasing a team, the cost of purchasing concessions at a game, etc.
yeah,
All of those things are starting to come at a premium. So people feel as if I can say and do whatever I want to do because I
yeah. It's
paid a
entitlement.
premium to be here. Yes, yes. It's so amazing to me, and it's one of the things for sure. And to your point about when people say athletes shouldn't speak about politics and things of that nature, it's really amazing to me to see it, because a lot of these sports that we're talking about from a political standpoint, politics were infused in them the day when we actually had color barriers in these leagues. These were leagues that you and I couldn't play in. So these leagues, from the inception, politics were part of them.
Yeah,
So, and we live in a country that, and I remember this because, being in Southern California, I remember this in 1984, the Soviet Union at the time, that's what it was called, did not attend the Olympics in Los Angeles because we did not attend the United States didn't attend the Olympics in Moscow in 1980, right? And these were political statements. But yet you turn to these athletes and say, hey, I just want you to, when I tune into my sports, I don't want to see any political statements. That's having it both ways.
yeah.
So it's really interesting to me.
Well,
Really,
patriotism means different things to different people, and that's all you
right.
really need to know about it.
That's it. That's it. And that's all. That's it. And that's all. So sticking with the wubble, were there any players, and they could be, Asia Wilson, of course, being at the top, being the first pick in the draft, and then winning the MVP a couple of years into her career, or it could be like Benaja Laney that was averaging 5 points a game, got cut in Indiana, and went to Atlanta and was averaging 16 points a game as the most improved player of the year. Are there any players that, from a stylistic standpoint, from a statistic standpoint, in the wubble that really impressed you, and why?
Honestly, the whole Mystics team really impressed me. Like they didn't have their leader there, and every day it was a different person. Like this team was every game they had one person go for like 20, 30 points, and it was a
Yep.
different person every single time. And
Facts.
so just to see them all kind of take on the challenge of being like, all right, so our MVP is gone. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
they took on that challenge, and they balled out. Like literally, it could have been I've never seen a team where it could literally be anybody on any given day.
Right.
And
Right.
not just like, oh, this player went for 15 today. I'm talking people going for 30 and 12. Like,
Yeah,
and you
Maisha
never knew who it was going to
Hyde-Allen,
be.
yeah.
You never
Aaron
knew who it was
Powers.
going to be.
Yeah.
I just really enjoyed watching, because when you don't know, it's like that extra level of excitement. Like, someone's going to bring it extra today, but you don't really know who it's going to be.
Right.
And obviously, Petty's story, getting cut and then coming back and hitting the game winner. That's one of those stories that like become a Disney movie.
Right.
Like
No question.
that was just that was wild. And I mean, it was just fun to watch. Players would get cut on Monday, and then Wednesday they'd be in a new uniform playing like 15 minutes in a game.
Yeah.
Like it was literally like watching fantasy basketball play out in real life. Like it was wild. It was like, oh, okay, we're gonna cut her. Oh no, we're gonna pick her up. We're gonna pick her up off waivers this week. We got a hole to fill, and then all of a sudden they're in the starting lineup. So it was just like, it was so much fun just to watch the uncertainty, and just like people just overcome all the adversity of like not knowing who was gonna be there, if the league was gonna be there, like what was gonna happen.
Right.
So just as a whole, like I really just enjoyed the kind of like, what is it gonna be today? It was it was always something different. There's so many fun storylines this year.
No, to your point with Washington, they have to be, you have to consider them amongst like the league leaders in player development. They do an amazing job with player development.
Yeah,
and,
they do.
And we know this as players, that's contrary to what people think, most players actually want to be coached, because we all want to reach the apex of our respective powers, right?
Well, we want to be coached by someone who knows what they're talking about.
There you go.
And has respect for you as a human being. And that's what gets lost on a lot of coaches. Like me being a coach now, it even more like makes me realize like how much I was in a lot of situations failed, because coaches don't deal with people on a human level. It's a group level. You have to treat every player differently, because we're all humans and we all respond to different things. You gotta understand what makes people tick. And I think that's what they have in that organization. Their coaching staff, they treat their players as part of the collective, not you're down here, I'm up here. And you can really see that they respond to their coaching staff.
No question. And and it's funny that you say that, because one of my high school friends is on here, and he can talk about that, to your point about being failed as a player. And it's funny too, because it was easier to do that when I know for us, it was so much easier to do that because a lot of us played multiple sports. So it's when you play football, that's where you really start seeing that, okay, I'm just coaching the group, and this is how I do it, whether you guys like it or not. This is how because it's a physical sport and all the things that go into it. And so that sort of bled onto the basketball court. It bled its way into basketball culture and being coached like that. And, I had to find that out. To your point, I'm glad you said that, because my evolution as a point guard was when I figured out what resonates with certain players. Certain players, I say, you
Yeah.
know what, man, you didn't blah, 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 blah. You can do it that way. But other players, you have to probably be a little more cerebral with it if you want to get their
Yep.
best performance, right? So to your point, I'm so glad that you said that. And that's leading me to something else that wasn't on our list. But it really is on topic for now. I used to say this. There were coaches that coached at certain levels that in college that whenever a job was available, because of the success that they may have had at the mid-major level, they were always being mentioned for a job at a higher level in college. And to your point, one of the things that I used to say about one coach in particular was this dude's never leaving because exactly what you just said, Judy. When you are coaching players that are at a mid-major level or lower, in mid-major division one or lower, inevitably, all of us feel like we should be at that high major level, right? So when you coach those types of players, if that level of respect that you're referencing, if you don't have that level of respect, it's almost as if it's okay in this regard and this regard only. Because most of those players that are like us that may not be at that high major level come in with the chip on your shoulder anyway. So you saying all that stuff to me doesn't really is okay, fine. I'm already
Yeah.
mad
Yeah.
anyway. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But so I knew that this coach would never leave. He was just using those opportunities as leverage to get a better deal at his present job, because he knew that if I go to another level, if I go to the highest level, I'm going to have to coach these players differently, because
Yeah.
players that are top 25, top 50 in the country are socialized completely different than the
Yeah.
way
For
that
sure.
right.
For sure.
It's just funny that you say that, because then when you look at on the NBA, you look at Greg Popovich, or if you look at Phil Jackson, I'm just so glad you said that, because those coaches were able to achieve the buy-in that they achieved from these great players because they appealed to them outside of basketball.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm just so glad that you said that, because that's so important. And a lot of people just kind of think that this is just, okay, we just show up and lace our shoes up and let's get it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, even at the NBA level, you still have to know how to deal with your players. You have to be able to deal with, you're managing personalities. At the end of the day, like, yeah, you're X's and O's, but you're managing personalities. So like you have to know how to deal with different people, and you have to know what makes people tick.
No question. No question. And it's funny that you say that, because I certainly want you to speak to this about that. Sometimes and I know as you're coaching, sometimes when you see players, and I would see players do this, especially when I was at Nike, and when I was at ESPN before Nike, when you are de facto in sort of like a mentorship role for players and families that trust you as they're making their quote unquote business decisions about where they're going to college and things of that nature. I would hear families and players choose coaches that that don't try to appeal to you as an individual. Let's say it that way. And they would say it because they're like, yeah, with this coach, coaching that way, or quote unquote coaching me hard, and really disrespecting you. They would say, yeah, that's preparing me for the NBA. And I would tell them, or they say that's preparing me for the WNBA. And I would tell them,
That's
do
not
you
how it
know
works.
that? Exactly right. They don't even coach you that way, because the
Yeah.
players make more than the coaches.
Yeah.
So they can't coach you that way.
Yeah.
So
And I mean,
speak
you're
to
all
that.
adults. By that point,
Yes.
you're all adults, and no adult, no matter what position you're in, wants another adult yelling in their face like they're a child, right? You can be a powerful leader, you can be a stern, authoritative leader without yelling in people's faces, without
No question.
grabbing them by the scruff of their neck and all that stuff. Like you can actually. I know it sounds crazy, but you can actually get through to people with just using your words. Right?
Facts.
Like I always tell my kids, like, I don't like to yell, right? I don't like raising my voice. So if I do it, then I'm doing it for like a serious reason.
Right.
So everyone gets mad at some point, but if all you're doing is yelling, and that's literally the default tone they hear your voice in, it means nothing anymore, right?
That's right.
If you're always yelling, then what are you saying? You're basically, that's your talk, right?
Right. Right.
Eventually it gets tuned out. They're not listening to the words that are coming out of your mouth. They're only hearing the tone of your voice,
That's
right?
real.
So if
That's
you
real.
actually like meet people at their level and talk to them as human beings, they'll respect you a lot more,
That's very
right?
true.
I mean, me
Absolutely.
personally, I'm a player who could, I mean, I could deal with that. I've had coaches that were crazy. Like my high school coach was
Right.
like the female Bobby Knight, like, but she didn't do that to other players, right? She did it to me because she knew that
Yep.
I was the best player in the team, and she knew that if my teammates saw that happening to me, I was on the same level as everybody else, right? So
Right.
there's a method
Right.
to her madness. Whereas you
Yep.
see some coaches, they're just like screaming and yelling and like, how does that help? How does that
How,
help?
no question. No doubt. And it's funny because it's funny that you say that because I feel like COVID is exposing a lot of things, and you're seeing coaches that and you're definitely seeing this in college football. You're seeing coaches that are quote unquote known as players coaches, and they'll go into a living room and whatever it needs to be done to deliver that player on campus, they're going to do that. And
Yeah.
so, they're known as these players coaches, and they, hey, it's all about the players, and the players make the program, et cetera, et cetera. But then you're hearing them with respect to COVID, and they just talk greasy with it. Yeah, I got 40, 50 players that had it. And it's like, wait a minute, you were just the person that was saying so I feel like as you're being recruited, the questions that you ask these coaches when they come into your home, especially coming through this climate that we've had that's been produced by COVID, you need to change some of those questions because just because of coaches fronting, they're fronting like they are a player's coach and it's all about we're acting in the best interest of you.
Yeah,
You
they want
need
to get
to,
them out. They want to get them out of the hood, and they want
there
to
you,
do.
right, right, right. I mean, right, right. Speak on that, please.
I just my thing is those same coaches who care so much about these kids and blah blah blah. If they saw these kids out of uniform and they didn't know them from Adam, how would they react to them? Right? If they didn't know
Right.
that these people had something to give to them, that they were going to make them money, get that next big contract, how would they treat them? How
Mm-hmm.
many of these coaches have you seen actually speak out and say Black Lives Matter?
Right.
You have coaches that literally have like spoken against the Black Lives Matter movement that are coaching young Black males,
That's right.
right? So at the end
That's
of the
right.
day, I don't want to hear about all the wins that you have, right? The culture, the blah, blah, blah. How are you going to treat my child, right? I don't need you to, kiss her butt, but I do need you to treat her or him as a human and value them as
Absolutely.
a human and value
No
their
question.
people as human beings.
No
So there are
question.
questions that need to be asked now that maybe we weren't asking when I was a kid in the 90s, right?
Right.
Because
No question.
back then it was the shut up and dribble, shut up and run the
That's
football. I'm not black, I'm
absolutely
OJ, right?
right.
That was what it
Yeah.
was back then. But
Right.
we're a lot more aware of the stuff that goes on now. So if you're a parent and your kid is talented, right? You know they can go anywhere they want, but you want to make sure that they're going to go somewhere where their experience is going to be respectful and valuable. And at the end
Yep.
of the day, I think, yeah, sports are important, but as I get older, you realize that like you don't want to send your kid away somewhere where they're not being treated as an equal. They're not being treated.
No
They're
question.
not being treated. They're being treated as a tool rather than a human.
No
And I
question.
think I think that's important. And the more that we start holding these coaches accountable, the less that we have to worry about this kind of stuff happening on campuses.
No question. No, I couldn't have said it more eloquently than you did. Spot on. Spot on. Connect Gang, I appreciate you all joining me. I'm with my sister, Judy Wright from SQ Custom. She does amazing work as a sneaker artist. We are going to talk about my order, as a matter of fact, later. But she does amazing work, and she has a great mind. Of course, this is our second time talking, and even before, in between our conversations, we certainly talk to each other through social media. We're texting and things of that nature, but we're back on it again live. Appreciate you all joining, and I want to talk to her about her great work, as we got some other things we need to cover also, but we certainly want to talk about her work, and Connect Gang. You guys need to get at her too. If you are a sneakerhead, or if you know someone that's a sneakerhead, and they want some unique work, because it's all about having something that nobody else has and having it done the right way. So get at her for sure. But so I saw your Captain Planet work, which is fire, by the way. And I don't know what's going on with Instagram, like when. And I don't want to, burn you up, but every time you're like, please comment if this is the first time you see it. I want to comment every single time, because it is the first time I'm seeing it. So, but I don't want to, take over your social media. But talk to me about your inspiration in your work. And then, one of the things for me that as a word person, that's my art. And there's sometimes where I hit a block, and I get writer's block, and I need to find something else for inspiration. Talk to me about what's your inspiration. Where do you go? What do you do when you get, okay, someone says, hey, okay, I want to design like me, where I say, hey, I want something. I don't know what I
but I don't
want,
know
but
what
this
I want.
is what I want. And then you sort of come up with the vision. Talk to me about that.
So it's funny because I feel like a lot of people, they're like, oh, I just go on a long walk and I really think about it, and it's not like that for me. It comes
Yep.
from everywhere, and it comes at really random times. So I always say, like, if I get blocked now, like I used to just like rack my brain, look on the internet, look at photos and things like that, and that doesn't work for me. It
Yep.
always comes to me when I'm trying to sleep. Like there'll be times where
Uh,
I'll be sleeping, and then like I'll just like have a dream, or like just like a little thought, and I'll be like, oh yeah, like that makes perfect sense. And I don't know why this happens. Probably because I don't sleep very well, but because I do all my thinking at night. But
yep.
for me, it's
Yep.
like sometimes it can come to me right away. Sometimes somebody will say, I want XYZ, and I'm like, boom, I know exactly what I'm doing. I know where everything's gonna be. Other times I'll have like a kind of like a little bit of an idea what I'm gonna do, but then I'll just sit down and kind of like freestyle it. And honestly, a lot of times it is just me freestyling, me playing around with space, me playing around with concepts and ideas. And I mean, like with the Us pair that I just
I
recently
was
did,
just
the Us
about
Get
to
Out
ask you
pair.
about those. Yes.
It was like I love horror movies. I love Halloween. Like Halloween is my holiday,
Yep.
and I really love Jordan Peele. And I was like, it's something that I was like I wanted to do for so long, but I couldn't really think about like how I was gonna do it. And then I bought these Jordan ones when I went to the Nike employee store, because I was at the Nike employee store, and that's what you do when you're there. I was like, I'll
No
do something with
question.
these later.
Yep.
And then I just thought about it. I was like, all right, so how am I gonna fit a movie that doesn't have like a guy with a mask on? It's not like doing Michael Myers or doing like Jason with the mask. It's so conceptual, and I think that's
Right.
why I love it so much,
Yep.
that I wanted to challenge myself to see how can I put this concept that's not like a box,
Right.
put
Hmm.
this
Hmm.
concept onto this silhouette. And it was just like, all right, the teacup is a big part of Get Out,
Right.
and then like the scissors are a big part. And it was just like kind of, and then one day I was sleeping, and it just like came to me like, boom, I'll do this. And then it was like it's funny because when I get in that mood, I can't sleep anymore, so I just have to get up in the middle of the night and like start working. So
Yep.
a lot of times for
Yep.
me, it's just like it'll come to me at a random time. I try to write things down, in my notes when I think of a concept that I haven't done yet, or think of something that I want to do. But it's very scattered. It's never like I'm gonna write down bullet points of what I'm gonna do. You know what I mean? I think
Right.
that's what makes
Right.
it beautiful. I don't think art's not supposed to be a blueprint. You know what I mean? Art's not supposed to be
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
building a house. It's not supposed to be
Right.
like, all right, this goes here and this goes there. Like I do, I'll play around with concepts and draw things out on Procreate. But my best work, my favorite work is always just me kind of like letting it free flow, like let the
Right.
creativity like free flow through me. It's the same way with basketball. Like, yeah, we drew these plays up, but I'm about to just create this on my own, kind of a thing. And I've
Yeah.
always at my best in the fast break, like just like creating things and riffing. That's just kind of my style.
Yeah, it's funny too because I was actually going to ask you about the Get Out and the Us pair because those are it's just that's just crazy. And I look at it, and again, being a word person, it's also made me a dabble a little bit as an artist, and there are certain things that you hear. There are certain songs. There are certain from a production standpoint. There are certain songs that I hear, and I'm like, damn, I
Definitely.
wish I did that. Right.
Yeah.
So and I'm not an artist at all, right? So in terms of drawing, I'll say that. But when I saw that the Us and the Get Out pair, like, and you've had a bunch of pairs I looked at, and I'm like, man, I wish I'd done that. But when I saw those, I literally looked at the phone and said, man, I wish I could do that. So those were amazing. So let me ask you, for anybody that is looking to order and say the holidays are starting to come around now, like does it start getting busier for you around this time, or as
um,
people start getting closer?
yeah,
And
generally it
yep,
does. It does. But like
yep,
with COVID going on, I'm not really sure, I'm not really sure how that's going to affect, people financially. So I'm not,
yep,
just like with everything else in the world, it's a big question mark. We'll see, we'll kind of see what
right,
happens. And like I always say, like my goal is to make quality art, make it accessible to everybody. So
right,
um
yep, yep,
and along those lines, I've dropped a lot of my prices just to make it so, people can still do those things that they want to do. I mean, this is a time of year when people want to, they want to get their kids something. Their kids probably been asking them all year for it. You know what I mean? Like, growing up in a single parent household, you want to make sure that, you want to make sure you can do that for your kids. And
yeah,
I watched my mom do it. Like my dad was obviously there, but I grew up mainly with my mom. And
hmm,
watching her, trying to do her best to get that for her kids. I know how that feels. Like, I remember
no,
like sneaking into my mom's purse, and me and my sister finding a layaway list to see what we're gonna get for Christmas. She was
right,
working hard. She's working hard for us. So I want to
no
try to
question,
make sure that kids that are in that position can also get sneaker art. It's a big thing, and kids are really into it. So I want to try to make it accessible for everybody. So along those lines, with everything going on, I dropped a lot of my prices just to make it a little bit more accessible. But Christmas generally picks up. I tell myself every year I'm going to cut it off at a certain time because I don't want to
that's
stress
what I was
myself
going to
out.
ask
And then
you.
I end
Yep,
up being too
yep,
nice and being like, all right, I'll take this pair. Then I
yeah,
end up like stressing myself out the like last 2 weeks of the last 2 weeks of November trying to get everything out. So I'm really trying to make sure that I cut it off, first week of November, second week of November, and then after that, I can't really guarantee it, especially with shipping right now, because
right,
a certain person who's supposed to be running the country decides to straight up just like gut the USPS. So
right,
it's a little
right,
bit tougher. It's tough right now for
right.
shipping and times. Like, so I'm gonna try to cut it off like the beginning of November, because after that, like I know that I can't uphold the end of the bargain of USPS.
Right. Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but we'll see. Orders are starting to come in again. There's always like a little lull. It kind of like ebbs and flows. It's just like the life of an artist. I try not to
Right.
spiral into complete depression every time it happens, but it's hard not to. But yeah,
No.
so right now I'm just kind of playing it by ear and kind of seeing what happens with all the uncertainty.
Yeah. Yeah. No. No. It's So that's what I was wanting to get at, to hear what's that cutoff date. And so for anybody that's out there that's interested, that's been tuning in, and when I post it again, so they know what the cutoff date is, and I'm gonna
Yeah.
actually put that in the copy as well, so
And
they know.
if you don't know what you want to get, if you want to get a gift for somebody else, I also have gift cards on the website. So if you don't know what you want, or you don't know what the person who you're buying for wants, I have gift cards available as well. So
No, that's a good option, because again, this is all about that customization and let them be able to do whatever it is
yeah,
that they want to
exactly,
do. No,
exactly.
no doubt, no doubt. So what's next for you in terms of things that you can speak on? Because I of course, I'll be considerate to, there are lots of things that you can't talk about until it actually comes out. So what's one of some of the things that are next for you that you can share with us?
Let me see. I think last time we talked, I had the pair that I was doing for Trae Young through a
Yep.
friend
Yep.
that I couldn't talk about. That was one of the things that I kind of like, said, I got something coming up, but I can't really say what it is.
Right. Right.
Then I had the Fever for Cause initiative with
Yeah.
Indiana Fever.
Yep.
Hooked up a bunch of the ladies with custom sneakers, and it's one of the freest blocks I've had in a while. So like I'm just kind of using that time to kind of like play with concepts I want to do while I
Right.
get customer orders, going out. But yeah, it's pretty quiet right now. I don't really have anything crazy coming up that I can think of, but I'm definitely going to keep on playing with these concepts and doing stuff that I hold close to my heart.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Well, I'm getting my order in since it's quiet right now.
You
Then.
know what you want? Do you know what you want yet?
I think I do. We're gonna have to discuss that. I might need you to walk me through it.
Yeah, okay. I got you.
So yeah, I may need you to walk me through it. So I was telling my wife that this is probably going to awaken a beast in me. So I'll probably
It's
start
like
going
tattoos.
crazy.
I always tell people it's like tattoos. You get one, then you got a whole sleeve. Like it's
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, yeah. I know I'm going to go start going crazy for sure. So let's talk about let's talk about horror movies,
Yes,
and
please.
since yes, let's talk about that. And since we're getting close to Halloween, and you talked about Us, you talked about Get Out. So talk to me about let's go the old school. What are some of your old school favorite horror movies and why?
Okay, so well, since my in my top three, there's two classics, um, Psycho and Halloween. Halloween is my by far my favorite movie of all time.
Yep,
I watch
and
it.
why?
I watch it roughly 8 times a year. Um,
And why?
it's funny because it started out when I was a kid. So my sister's 3 years older than me, and she loves horror movies. My dad loves horror movies. When I was a kid, they would watch horror movies and they would just scare me. So like I remember watching Halloween when I was a little kid and just crying my eyes out and like telling my mom being like, "Stop being a baby, blah blah
Hold on.
blah." Like,
Hold on, Judy. Judy, before you keep going, I need to say this because my wife and I laugh about this a lot, right? We laugh about when we were kids, the horror movies that we watched as kids that we would no way let our daughter watch right
yeah,
now,
no,
right?
we should
So,
not.
yeah,
We should
yeah,
never have been watching
yeah,
any of them. But my
yeah,
dad was
yeah.
watching them with us. Like,
Right,
it's just like
right.
so times are it's just different. We were different. It was a different
It's
time
so
for sure.
it's so different. Go on, go. I just wanted to mention that, but go
Yeah,
ahead.
you're absolutely right. So like I was a scaredy cat when I was a kid. I used to cry about everything when I was a little kid. Like I remember I had a My Buddy doll when I was little,
My
and then
buddy,
Chucky came
man.
out, and I
Yeah.
locked him in the closet. Like I locked him in the closet. I was probably like 6 years old, and I didn't find him again until like we moved out like 10 years later. So but yeah, so like it started out as me being like super afraid of it. And then, after a while of watching, like every Halloween we watch, I think it was like AMC would always have like the whole marathon. And it
Oh
just like
yeah.
I embraced it. And it was kind of like a form of like overcoming your fears. You know what I mean? So
Right.
like, and then I just fell in love with the genre. And so like Halloween
Yep.
was like, it's what's like kind of shocked me into being into Halloween movies.
Yeah.
So then, horror movies. So as I got older, I want to watch them all. And I don't think I watched Psycho until like, I mean, I was older when I watched Psycho, and I just, because when you're a kid, you're not gonna watch a black and white movie. It's just like
Right. No.
you
Right.
just don't do it, right? It's
No.
just like you
No.
don't watch
No.
them. So
Right.
I watched it when I was older, and I was immediately like, I remember I did watch The Birds because that wasn't black and white. I watched Psycho because I was like, man, I watched Alfred Hitchcock Presents as a kid, and like Twilight Zone
Yeah.
as a kid.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Twilight Zone
Oh
was the
yeah.
only black and white show I've ever watched in my life.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so so I watched Psycho, and I was just like, man, this movie is there's no blood, you don't see anything. It's all just building up the tension, the score, like the
Right.
mislead. I don't want to talk too much about it if you haven't seen it, watch Psycho. Like absolutely. Not the remake, the original Psycho.
Original. Yes.
Um, but yeah, like horror movies I don't know what it is about it. It's just like some kind of weird catharsis that that I love about it. Like
Yep.
I love it. I don't know why. I can't really tell you, but there's just so much to do with that genre. And I think especially like in the 80s, you know, it kind of got oversaturated with the slasher movies, which I'm not mad
Yeah.
at because like there's a lot of really dope slashers that people probably don't even know about. But I think it's that there's so much to do with it. Like you see dramas, you see comedies, they're kind of the, you know, they're kind of the same. Like there's like one or
Right.
two really
Right.
good dramas every couple years, one or two really good comedies every couple years. And with horror movies, you're able to just like explore these things that you wouldn't explore in a comedy or drama
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's not like surface level. You can be a little
Right.
fantastic, you could be a little more metaphorical, and it's just like they don't run out of ideas. Like
Yeah.
how did Us just come out? Like if you really think about like what, you know, the overarching storyline of Us,
Yeah.
and you just think
Yeah.
about like there's so many layers to it. You can watch it like as like three different types of stories.
It's
You know
very
what I mean?
true.
Like you can watch it
Yeah.
as surface level, what it is. You can watch it as the bigger metaphor of us versus them.
Right.
You know, there's
Right.
just so many.
Right.
It's just there's so many layers. You can watch a horror movie 30 times and see something you didn't see the
That's
first time.
true.
It's just
That's
like
definitely
I
true.
love that about horror movies.
It's definitely true. Absolutely. So, how about let's bring it current now? And what I like about what you were talking about in terms of the production and all those things, because as my artistry, whatever that is, has continued to develop, I've become more about the score and then looking at the production and all of those things. So, from that standpoint, what are your favorite sort of current ones that we've seen over the last couple years and why?
Wow, there's a lot. I feel like there was like a gap in time between like Scream
Yeah,
and like you
yeah,
know the
yeah,
reboot of Halloween where like horror movies just weren't very good. In the
yeah.
last like 8 9 years have been amazing. So It Follows is a great horror movie. It's definitely got like that John Carpenter feel with the synth score and like the slow tracking shots and just like the kind of eerie mood where you're looking at every square of the screen to see like where, you know, where the danger is.
Right,
Um,
right.
I really enjoyed that. And that one's more of like a, you know, that's like a straight up more of a horror movie. One of my favorite horror movies that is like it's the least expected movie I ever expected to be good is Happy Death Day. I don't know if you've
Okay.
seen it, but
I haven't
it's
seen
such a
that.
fun, it's like Groundhog's Day meets like a slasher movie.
Yep, yep.
But it's such a fun movie that's also a horror. It's like it kind of calls back to like, you know, Scream where it was like you could watch it with younger kids. You know, it's not as like jarring as some of the, you know, some of the newer movies.
Right,
Um,
right.
I'm trying to think of like, I mean, there's so many good movies. Halloween 2018 is amazing. If you haven't seen
Yeah.
Halloween 2018 like that, I'm always nervous about reboots, remakes,
Yes.
prequels, whatever you want, you know, like all that stuff.
Right,
And
right.
they did such a great job with it.
R-
I watched that one a couple times a year too. It's now my second favorite Halloween movie, which is saying a lot because the series is there's like 11 movies in the
Right,
series.
right, right,
So
right.
like yeah, so if you haven't seen that, definitely see that. I was so disappointed because of COVID. The new Halloween was supposed to come out. This should be out right now, and they pushed it back to 2021 because of COVID. So now I gotta
COVID, yeah.
wait.
Yeah. So they didn't want to have it where you can watch it at home. Right.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm glad they didn't because like the
yeah,
theater experience is so essential.
it's
Like
different. Yeah.
I can't imagine like Get Out. I went to see that in the movie theater like 3 times.
Yeah.
Just because like the audience was so engaged. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't remember last time I went to a movie where people were like audibly gasping and like basically yelling at the screen. And this wasn't even like a black movie theater. This was like a movie theater in the burbs. So you know if people
Yeah.
are yelling at the screen, like you know
That's
that
saying
movie's
something.
got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
That's
so it's
saying
just like
something.
there's just something about watching horror movies like in a movie theater that you just can't replicate at home. Like I mean I watch movies all day at home, but
Yeah.
man, I miss the movie theater.
Yeah. Because to your point, when you're trying to elicit a certain mood from a certain scene with the music and things of that nature, audibly, it's just even if you have a really good system, it's just hard to capture at
Yeah,
home.
the way they make the
As it,
sound. Sometimes it
right,
feels like the
right.
sound's behind you, and yeah, you
Yes,
just can't you
yes.
can't replicate it at home. Even if you have surround sound, it's just so different.
It's really hard. It's really hard. Even if you have and to have a system that can come close to replicating it, you probably spend 15,000 at
Yeah,
least, right?
yeah.
20,000 on it. So, at that point, I can think of other things to do with
Yeah,
20 G's.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So we'll wrap it up with this. I appreciate you joining. We'll wrap it up with this. Let's
Oh
talk about the
no, thank you. It's always fun. It's always fun.
No, let's talk about the NFL.
Oh, this is
And
the real horror story right here.
let's talk about your Philadelphia Eagles.
Where
So,
do you want me to start?
well, it's fortunate enough that you're in probably the worst division in football, right? So that
Probably
helps.
a
Yeah.
1,000%. It's the worst. It would be the
So,
worst. It would be the worst division in college football right now. It's really that bad.
man, it's crazy to watch it. So let me ask you, since the injury, um, what is going on in your estimation, in your opinion, with Carson Wentz? And what do you think about Carson Wentz as a player? There's been things that people have said, and I don't know if this is true or not, but people questioning his leadership, all of these different things. Give me your evaluation / insight on one Carson Wentz.
So I'm gonna start off with this. I'm a McNabb fan, right? I'm from Syracuse. I
Yep,
followed him to
yep,
Philly. Philly became my
yep.
team because of McNabb.
Shout
He
out
went to
Chicago.
4 NFC championships in a row, 1 Super
Yep,
Bowl, right?
yep,
And the
yep.
fans never let him ever have a moment to be like, oh yeah, man, this is our quarterback. He's a great quarterback. We love
They
having McNabb as quarterback, right?
they didn't give him his
They
flowers.
they
Facts.
critiqued him. They downplayed him. He had no receivers. We had Mitchell and Thrash, and
Yeah,
he was
yeah,
taking us. We had 1 year. 1 year he had a real
one
receiver.
year.
We went
Yeah,
to the Super Bowl, right?
yeah,
Still
yeah.
to this day, they will never give that man his props. So now you have Carson Wentz, who had a decent rookie season. He had a really good season in 2017 towards ACL, unfortunately. Nick Foles steps in and literally changes the culture of the football team,
They build a
right?
shrine in the locker room to this
We had
man. Yes.
Jenkins, yeah, exactly. We had Jenkins on the defensive side as a leader, right, to galvanize the
Hmm.
team. And then
Right,
we had Foles take over, and immediately those guys gravitated towards him. It was obvious that
right.
Peterson had better play calling with him. It was obvious that the players responded around him, right? And this is not
Yeah,
a knock on Wentz, right?
right,
You have a guy who's coming off an ACL surgery. Then you have a Super Bowl MVP, right? Who
right.
clicks with the coach, who clicks with the team, who those guys would die for, right? And then you decide, you know what? Thanks for the Super Bowl. We're going to let you go to Jacksonville, right? And
Right,
this is not a knock
right.
on Wentz, but he might be a better quarterback from the eye test, but Foles is a better quarterback for Philadelphia. And that's what
That's
people don't understand.
key.
People love to say, "Oh yeah, well he went to Jacksonville and he didn't do anything. He shattered his collarbone throwing a touchdown in Jacksonville, right?
Yeah, right, right.
Injuries happen. We have Wentz. He's injured all the time.
And the
So
Bears are full
my thing
right
is,
now.
we
So
could have traded Wentz, right? Instead of giving him that contract. Can you imagine the draft cachet we would have got back for giving him up? And then you don't lose much because you have a guy in Foles who runs the RPO like a magician. He gets the ball out. He makes the right decision. He doesn't turn the ball over an egregious amount. This has never been a knock on Carson Wentz, but Eagles fans are so fixated on winning the Foles Wentz thing that
yeah,
they make excuse after excuse after excuse for him.
right, right,
We made a
right.
mistake.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious we made a mistake. And
Hmm.
all I hear people saying is, well, we lost Wright. He doesn't have his QB coach anymore. Blah blah blah. It's like, who is Aaron Rodgers' QB coach?
Does anybody know?
Who is Russell Wilson's
Right,
quarterback coach? Do we know?
right,
Do we care?
right, Right.
We only know
Right.
McDaniels because he bounced around trying to coach everywhere. Like,
Right.
a great elite franchise quarterback doesn't need a QB coach to coddle him, right?
Mm.
He's supposed to
Right.
elevate us. A coach is not supposed to elevate him. So if you're
Right.
talking about him needing a coach to elevate him, he's a game manager, right?
Yeah.
That's what you said Foles was.
Right. Right. Right.
But he was winning.
Right. Right.
And
And it's
once
funny.
again, it's not a knock on Wentz. It's the truth.
You know what, Judy? You are on to something here, and I say this because you know most players that play at the professional level and are successful, most of them, not all of them, most of them, their situation, meaning what's the system, who are the teammates, etc. How does that relationship with the teammates mesh? That their situation is probably just as important as their natural talent for most players. Some players are just so talented that it just doesn't matter,
Yeah.
right? But what you just said about Nick Foles fitting in Philly really made me think about when I was working in scouting and baseball operations for the Boston Red Sox. It's one thing to be good enough to be a professional, but it's another thing when you are going to a city that the fans are so passionate about that particular team. You have to be wired a certain way to be successful. And for not every franchise is like this, but certain franchises are like that. And the Boston Red Sox are like that in baseball. Of course, the Philadelphia Eagles are like that in football. And then on the other side of that, some players are wired for that, and they seem to thrive in those environments. And then when you move them out of those environments that are sort of quote unquote less pressure packed, they actually play worse.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
absolutely true.
because yeah,
That's definitely Foles. And I think that the thing about Wentz is when all the stuff was coming out 2 years ago about his attitude and how he fit with the team, everyone crucified the guys who said it, right? It was all like
right,
anonymous
right.
sources, but we knew
It's true.
Alshon had said some things. We knew some of the defensive guys said some stuff. Bennett came out once he left Philly and said like, yeah, they wanted Foles.
Right,
They're
right.
not lying. Why would they be saying that?
Yeah,
Because they want to
very true.
alienate their quarterback. So it's
Very
funny
true.
that he continues to get the benefit of the doubt no matter how he performs. And
Hmm.
I think that's
Hmm.
what irks me the most. It kind of reminds me of Kawhi Leonard with the Clippers, right? You have a really great player who doesn't talk. If you don't talk, you can't lead, right?
Right,
You can't just be like
right. That's a great
I'm gonna
point.
get mine and then everything's gonna work. He played for the Spurs. The Spurs have a great system, a great coach. They have top-down leadership, right? He played for
Right.
Toronto. They have a great coach. They have a great system. They have top-down leadership. Now he plays for the Clippers, who are the Clippers,
That have
right?
never been here before. Right.
And they don't thrive. They don't thrive, and he's not a good leader because that's not who he is as a person, right? You have to be able to accept your limitations. And I don't think he wants to be a leader. He just wants to play basketball. He wants to be a
He
really
just,
great basketball player,
I just want to
and that's
hoop. Yeah.
fine. But if you don't put the pieces in place to be successful, that's what's going to happen. You can't just say, okay, this guy has the skill set of XYZ player, so we'll put him here and he'll be that player because he might have the skill set, but he doesn't have the mentality. And that's the
Hmm.
thing with Wentz. He doesn't have the mentality to be the lead dog for a team like Philly. He just doesn't.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
there's nothing
No.
wrong with that. It's not a knock. People get mad at you and they call you a hater, blah, blah, blah. He just doesn't have it. And it's fine. But like, let's not pretend that we shouldn't have made that move. Like everyone knows it. It's obvious. And now people are just trying to like cover up the mistake. It's like I don't know what happens from here. Like because he's in a huge contract. He's played awful. No one's gonna trade for him.
Right.
What
Right.
happens if Jalen Hurts comes in and plays amazing? Or what happens if we lose out? Like we better be snatching up a quarterback. If we don't get Justin Fields or Lawrence, I'm gonna be very upset. If we are anywhere near the top
The
three, if we
top.
don't get one of those guys, I'm throwing my jerseys out. I'm telling you.
You're done. You're done. So who becomes if you're out? Who do you adopt if you're out?
I've always been like, so Philly's my team, but I always kind of cheat on them with Aaron Rodgers because I just love watching that dude play football. I love watching him play football.
It is a master class at quarterback watching that dude play.
He's so good. Like, so if I'm down, if I feel bad after we lose at 10 o'clock, then, the next game comes on and I watch Aaron Rodgers just dominate. It always makes me feel better.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I go to you when I need to feel better. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the side boo.
Yeah, right. Man, because it is, to your point, it is having some, again, this is, not Aaron Rodgers or NFL, but having experience playing the position myself as a kid, like it, and then being a point guard and understanding passing and understanding, fitting balls into certain places where throwing people open, that is an art.
Throwing people open, yeah.
That is an art. And watching that dude do it, it's like, and to your point, I'll have arguments with people. And some of my friends, when we lived in Boston, we've had some arguments about Aaron Rodgers, and we'll talk about different
because they're all defensive because they're all Brady fans.
Of course, of course. So we're talking about Aaron Rodgers, and I'm like, man, did you guys see this play? And I'm sending them highlights, and so I actually kept a lot because I'm petty like this. I keep all of the highlights.
I do that too. I keep receipts.
Yeah. So I got all the highlights, and I got the responses where they're all saying that they're luck. And at this point, over the years, man, Judy, I probably have like 30 plays, and they're all luck. And I'm like, okay,
you can't be this lucky all the time.
Yes, facts, right? Like, no question. At that level too, there's no way that you're that lucky all the time. So it's funny when you say that, because when it is a masterclass watching that dude
he just does things that no other quarterback could do.
Yeah.
You can have the whatever conversation about greatest of all time, whatever, but he does things that other quarterbacks can do. And you see Mahomes is starting to become, mainly because Andy Reid. I was really happy to see him get a championship. He deserves it.
Yeah.
He does a lot of things that you don't see other quarterbacks doing. So I mean, it's just kind of it's just how it works.
Yeah.
New era, new things. It's generational. You'll see new things with every generation, and it's just how things work. It doesn't mean that this person is less good at football or this person is less good at basketball. It's just the turn of the times. It happens.
No question. And it's funny that you say that, because the basketball parallel is when I watch Aaron Rodgers, when I watch Patrick Mahomes, like, and then you put it in basketball terms. When you have a player like that, when they're amazing like that, to your point about who the quarterback coach and who's elevating who, when you have a player like that, you almost have to leave them alone, because you don't want to coach the creativity out of them. Right?
Exactly.
And you got to be able to every single throw the ball here, throw it there. You got to leave those players alone and let them do what they do. So,
great players overcome coaching.
No question.
Good coaching, mediocre coaching, bad coaching, they overcome coaching. Like, no question. It doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter. If you're getting $100 million every time you sneeze, coaching shouldn't even be brought up in the conversation. Like, you should be that dude. Period.
Yeah. No question. No question about that. I am in total agreement with you on that. This has been fun. We got to do this again.
It's always fun. Always a good time.
No, yeah, because we barely talked about the NBA, which I'm good with. So we got.
I know, man.
we barely talked about it. So, and I'm good with it, because again, I'll have like things I want to ask, but I just really try and follow you. So no, I appreciate it. We got to do it again, and we definitely got to talk about what I got to my design. You got to walk me through it.
You on the clock.
I know. Yeah. So, Judy, I appreciate you. Again, tell the folks where they can find you, and you all need to hit her up. You want some shoes done?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm SQ_customs on all my social medias. So you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. if it exists, it's the social media. I'm probably on there. So SQ_customs, and then my website is just sqcustoms.com. Drop in if you have any questions. Let me know. I'm generally two inches away from my phone at all times. So hit me up if you have any questions, and I'll be glad to help. Yeah, you can attest to exactly.
I can attest to that. Yeah, because whenever I hit her, she hits me right back. So no, the responsiveness is real. Connect gang, appreciate you all joining me. We will do this again next week. Judy, for sure, we're going to do it. So appreciate you all joining, and we got to do it again soon. Stay healthy, stay safe, everybody.